Are you ready to think big and act bold? Then you are in the right place. This is Innovative Entrepreneurs, a podcast that will bring you the stories, insights, and tips from some of the most successful and innovative entrepreneurs in the world. I am your host, Erica Bailey, and I am here to help you start, scale, and sustain your own entrepreneurial journey. Let's get started. Today, we have an extraordinary guest with us. Her name is Carolyn Swora. With a remarkable 28 years of corporate leadership experience under her belt, Carolyn brings a fresh perspective to mainstream leadership, emphasizing environments where individuals thrive. As an Amazon best-selling author of 2 transformational books, including Evolve, The Path to Trauma-Informed Leadership, Carolyn's expertise has made waves across various corporate domains, from sales and marketing to reimbursement and customer service. Her work has been featured on ABC and NBC. As a certified Dare to Lead facilitator, Carolyn seamlessly blends her knowledge of industrial and organizational psychology and human resources management into her empowering coaching style. Her wealth of experience delivers potent solutions to corporate management challenges, optimizing resources for unparalleled success. Get ready to gain profound insights from a leader who knows how to drive change and empower individuals. With further ado, let's welcome Carolyn to Innovative Entrepreneurs Podcast. It is a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Erica. It's a pleasure to be here.
First off, tell me a little bit more about what you do and all of these amazing things that I just read off.
Yeah. Probably the simplest way to describe it is I come in and help coach teams. It's the best way to describe it. I played a lot of sports when I was a youth. I coached pretty high level. And, the corporate world is really just like a great big field of play. So I've been able to really transfer those skills of being a high performance coach into high performance teams. Inside 4 walls, the court of play is just a little bit different. And as you and I both know, it's hard. You can have a lot of great players on a team, but how to get that team to synergistically work together, it's sort of like the whole is greater than the sum of all of its parts. Yeah. So I kind of help people find that greater whole.
Wow.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your book. So Evolve, The Path to Trauma-Informed Leadership. Like that sounds very interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I have, become very, very interested and curious about. And, usually these types of passions show up because it's filling a need in ourselves. And so my own experience being in the corporate world as a leader, working with other leaders, and then as a consultant was I kept seeing and experiencing this growing gap between what people really wanted to be when they were leading versus the person or the persona that they were portraying themselves as. And, that was really where I started to focus after I left my corporate world. I started in 2016 and, that good old year 2020 kind of shifted everything in the world. And that cracked open so many things, right, that we took as normal. Mm-hmm. And that's really when I started exploring what is trauma? How well do we truly know ourselves? And, I won't get into all those details about what took me where, but that was really the starting of the book, and realizing it's time. We need to talk about this for a few reasons. But that's really what inspired me to dig into that line of work. And now pretty much everything that I do has a trauma-informed lens on it. Whether or not I come out and distinctly say, this is a trauma-informed leadership program, not always doing that, but the approach I take does have that lens into it.
Interesting. So, what was your why to go out on your own? And let me give you an example. You probably already know that, but like for me, I wanted to be at every football game for my kids. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be at every school function. I wanted to be at every mom and son cupcake thing. So being a business owner, that is how I was able to make sure I can achieve my why, and really love and focus on my family. So what was your why?
My why was sort of an intersection of opportunity. My role was being discontinued. At that point in the organization, I was at a director level, and I was offered a package, and it felt like the right thing to do for a variety of reasons. But the biggest reason is I wanted to figure out who I really was. I know I really conformed and tried to do the right thing or the nice thing all the time, and I lost track of who I was. And so stepping outside of a big multinational company, it gave me the freedom to do that.
That is wonderful. Absolutely. So did you figure out who you really were?
I'm getting there. I think it's a lifelong journey, but
I'm glad that you answered it that way, because I would have said the same thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't change, in a day.
No. And what I did learn, which is really interesting, is this addiction to work and getting stuff done. Mm-hmm. That's not the employer, because I'm my own employer now, and I have no one to look at but myself. Yeah. And so that has really helped me understand my whole relationship with productivity and performing and doing the right thing. And so that's why I say I'm getting there. I'm getting closer to knowing myself, but I'm closer than I have been before. And I'm very grateful for what I learned in my time in the corporate world. I'm very grateful for it.
That is awesome. Yeah, because you definitely got some transferable skills from being a coach, right? And in school, having all of that sports that really does teach you transformative skills. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Throughout your life, you have those lessons, those life lessons that teach you how you can bring value to others, I guess.
Yeah.
So I have a question here that I think is phenomenal. I saw on your website, and it says, I am a recovering overachiever.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. I thought that was so cool. Like, I underlined it 3 times. I was like, don't forget this. Don't forget this.
Yeah. I mean, it really circles back to do really well in any employer, any employment, right? Even in my own business, if I am going to knock it out of the park for my clients, it's really easy to get hooked into overachieving. And sure, there could be some gender overlay with that, but I'm going to kind of keep that out of this discussion. Wanting to be the best partner or the best friend or the best mom or, the best employee or the best consultant, like insert whatever I'm doing, I have to be the best at. And that really takes away from being, like, just sitting in the comfort of, or discomfort of being who we really are, and disconnecting from who I am. So, disconnecting from what I do. So what's the most common question you get asked when you meet somebody for the first time? Oh, hey, what do you do?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
And so how can we be more focused on how do we want to be? It's really what we do is, yes, it hopefully is going to contribute to something bigger, but not every one of us has this connection to or a role that allows us to make some massive shifts in the world from the outward looking in. Yeah. But what I do think can be transformative is how we can be ourselves and show up and treat each other. And when we can be ourselves, we can be open to others and invite in and learn from their experiences instead of thinking, oh, well, mine has to be better than yours. So when I say recovering overachiever, I don't like to ask people what they do anymore. It's like, tell me something fun about yourself, or, a cool place you've been lately, or just, trying to get beyond that. What do you do?
Yeah, because honestly, I don't really care about that. I care about, who they are as a person, who I am.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun?
So in your book, Evolve, The Path to Trauma-Informed Leadership, you discuss creating a safe and supportive environment for employees.
Yep.
So could you share maybe a few practical strategies for leaders who want to implement this trauma-informed practices?
Yeah. So I'm going to take a step back for a second, just because I know that T word can be a little bit like, whoa, what the heck?
Thank you. I know exactly how to ask that question.
Yeah, I'll just slot it in there. So let's address the T word. So first of all, trauma is the research in this area is advancing and has advanced tremendously. And, I'm in Gen X. And so when I was being raised, the concept of trauma was more, it's an event. It's something bad that has happened to you. It's an event. Toughen up and, suck it up, buttercup. So some of the, the great work by, Stephen Porges, Peter Levine, Gabor Mate, who am I missing? Oh, Bessel van der Kolk. They've really, really advanced our understanding about trauma. And so what we know now is trauma is something that's stored in your body. So here's what I would like to, I'm just really going to simplify. What does trauma-informed leadership really mean? It's recognizing that our nervous systems are going to speak to each other. And they don't speak through words. They speak through understanding unconsciously, is this person safe or not? And to me, that really simplifies trauma-informed leadership. It's recognizing that what looks like safety to you does not automatically infer that everybody needs to be safe around me because I'm a nice person. It's understanding that your life experience, and I don't need to know, this is the other thing about trauma-informed leadership, it is none of my business. It is out of my league. Like, we are not meant to be therapists. We are not meant to diagnose. We're not meant to judge and compare. But recognizing that trauma is going to get stored in our body and it's going to impact how our nervous systems are communicating with each other. So in terms of being a trauma-informed leader, one, you understand that nervous systems talk and they don't talk through words. So you can't control what's going on.
And when you say they don't talk through words, I don't know. I'm like visualizing something trying to talk to each other, like something, but then nothing's
just like
it's not that simple. But
it isn't. This is the power. I keep joking that nervous system 101 or, could be in business schools, because my ability to be safe in an environment is going to be determined by my own life experiences.
Okay.
And if I am a leader in an organization and I want innovation or creativity or openness or collaboration, all of these things that require us to find spaces together where we can be ourselves.
Okay. Unique.
We are going to be not operating with a full toolbox if we think words are the only thing that can create safety.
If you've been listening, you need to go back like 30 seconds.
So as a leader, if you're in, again, any size of an organization, quite often you're looking for an innovation of some sort. You're going through some sort of transformation, some sort of change. You're going to want creativity, openness, collaboration. All of these things organizations want. Really doesn't matter what size, right? Gone are the days of here's our process, we're going to stick to it, and that's our bread and butter.
Yeah.
Right? So be it transformation or change, new technology, we're always having to adapt and move through these uncertain situations, right?
Okay.
Now, as leaders, we can try and create an environment where people can show up and contribute and be their best selves. And hey, failure's okay. Failure's all right here. Like, we're going to accept you for who you are. We can say all these words from our mouth, which, is linked to like more of our cognitive brain.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to describe here is that there is another center of intelligence, your body center, that is connected to your nervous system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And our nervous systems are unconsciously, under our awareness, figuring out, is this person safe or not? And we can't manipulate that. Like, we can't do anything cognitively. It operates in a separate part of our brain. Okay. Now, again, as leaders, do we need to know all the neurology around this? No, I don't profess to be a neurologist. What I do know, though, is that if a leader is going to sit down and say the words, I want to create a space where we can all be brave,
okay,
I know that is not enough anymore.
Okay.
It's not enough to do that, because a few things: the color of our skin, our gender identity, our beliefs about things. If maybe people know some of our religious beliefs, for example, or political beliefs, we might not feel safe in certain environments.
Okay.
And so leaders need to recognize in today's world that creating a place for people to be brave does not equate to safety
Oh my goodness.
for everybody.
It makes total sense. It's just beautiful. It's like artwork and you're helping people, you know what I mean? And you're speaking for employees, your things that they can't say because they don't understand.
Right.
And that is amazing. Like, what a beautiful thing to be able to do every day. That is awesome.
And here's the thing too. I mean, I was one of those leaders, and I'll share my story. I thought, hey, I'm an open person. I'm a great people person. Like, everyone should, that's a bad word too. Everyone should feel safe just because I do. Well, hello, white privilege. That was an unconscious or unaware thing to say. Because I'm a straight cisgender woman. And by that alone, those different identities are held in a certain regard in our society, which means my ability to step into the uncertainty, to be vulnerable is going to look different than other people.
Yes.
And so this is another aspect of trauma-informed leadership, is just recognizing that power and privilege and identity impact how safe people can feel. And so I don't actually like to use the word safe space, because we're never going to know, and nor do we need to. It's not our job to get inside and understand the deep, dark corners of everybody. But when we know that safety is not a unilateral place of being for everybody,
Okay.
it allows us to show up differently and meet people where they're at, instead of trying to force answers and force performance out of them.
So can you give me like an example of when somebody would use, or how somebody would use this trauma-informed practices or leadership?
I prefer to think of it as a state of being, rather than here is a strategy I'm going to use today. So a state of being, and I talk about this in my book, authenticity, consistency, and safety. Understanding the relationship between those three things is first. For us to be truly authentic, it's a pretty lofty aspiration. And to be honest, when employers say, bring your authentic self to work, it's pretty lofty. And sometimes I roll my eyes, if I'm being honest. If people are, however, going to get a step closer to authenticity, two things need to happen. They need to have an environment where they feel safer than what they currently do. And safety, again, links into all those things that we just talked about. And it needs to be consistent.
Okay.
So our brains aren't stupid. It's like, oh, just because Erica was like really warm and inviting and created like a wonderful place to speak up, but I'm not forgetting those 10 other times that she called me into the office and told me I needed to work harder and longer.
Yes. Oh my.
So those three aspects are foundational. That's what I mean, a way of being. Now here are the two other things, just again, to keep it really simple.
No, I love this. Keep going, girl.
I think it comes down to two things. Again, we don't need to turn into doctors or scientists or researchers around this, but two things. If we're going to truly be trauma informed, we are going to have an elevated sense of awareness about our actions on people. We don't fool ourselves into thinking that our impact is always going to match our intent, or that your impact isn't always going to be what you would like it to be. And you learn how to stay in that reality and circle back and still continue to be in connection with the other person. So that's the second part of this, which is connection.
Okay.
And connection is really about creating a place where somebody feels like they can belong, where I see you for who you are, Erica, this, woman, this vibrant personality who was playing with her hair and just sort of, I know we don't know each other that long, but that I'm not feeling the need to put my own experience or place it anywhere above yours. Okay. I'm going to invite yours in. I want to see you and value you and respect you for who you are instead of trying to compare you to what you are to me.
Got it. I'm unapologetically me. So
yeah. and frankly, that's what most of us are connected to. So you want to talk about like nervous systems?
Okay.
Nervous systems are they're great BS detectors. And yeah. And so they're going to know, like Bessel van der Kolk talks about, well, I guess it's a bit of a different, I won't go with that analogy, but let's put it this way. Our body has a lot of intelligence if we choose to listen to it. I'm getting a little bit off topic there.
I don't care. Keep going.
Let me circle back. 2 things that I talk about in the book. If you want to be trauma informed, self-awareness is a journey. It's not a destination.
Yes.
And you are leveraging curiosity to understand other people's perspective and to continually close the gap between intent and impact.
I am totally tracking. This is amazing.
And then the second part is recognizing that connection is a very vital part of that. Seeing and honoring people for who they are and where they are at.
I get it. I love it. Okay.
And one thing I also do want to say, sometimes I've been challenged, not challenged, but like question about like, well, how can we do this while still holding people accountable? Like I got a business to run. So let me be clear. Trauma-informed leadership is not about, coaches and crying and, spilling out all of your personal details. It's not about that at all.
Okay.
It's about understanding your impact on others and really leaning in to staying in connection and getting curious with each other. So, I mean, it's hard right now for sure. Like all of us are struggling. How do we meet the performance goals either in our own business or in the corporate world?
Mm-hmm.
And address all of the life things that are going on, which, a list this big. There's no one out there, Erica, that's listening to this right now thinking, oh, my life is so amazing. I've got it so easy. There's no hardships whatsoever. No. And then you got all the other shit going on in the world, right? With wars and, really extreme political opinions. There's a lot of burning going on.
Heavy
right.
in the air, right? It just feels heavy.
Right. But when we can put this lens on and recognize that, in essence, trauma is unhealed. It's a wound. It's an emotional wound. Mm-hmm. And if we are human, then we are going to have some level of trauma.
I'm definitely human.
Yeah. So I'm going to pause there because I know we've just I've put a lot out there on the table.
I love it. No, I love it. I think it was fantastic. I do have a question for you. So I always believe in business that you have to know your employees and their needs, right?
Yep.
So for example, a woman who, is a single mom and is struggling to get her kids to daycare and still get to work on time. Yep. For her, the understanding and the offer of, hey, you can come in and a half an hour later, and we're fine with that so that you can get your kids to school and not stress every morning. Like to her, that is where she feels value because they understand her need and address it. And they do this for, their employees, right? So there's different ways to make your employees feel valued and heard and felt like they are in a safe space because you pay attention to their needs and you listen and you serve, right? So that's kind of my way of thinking. What do you that?
I'd say this. You gave an example where a person was given a solution. Mm-hmm. Hey, you can just come in 30 minutes later, no problem. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take it one step further.
Okay.
Let's say it was you. Hey, Erica, I've noticed it's really hard for you. I've noticed that you've been late often. And I'm wondering if there's something that we could figure out together that allows you to get your tasks done on time as usual, but that gives you the flexibility to manage what you need to manage. So do you see there? I didn't say, hey, just come in half an hour later.
Yeah.
We're actually co-creating, and I'm acknowledging, like, I see you, I hear you. And how can we do this together? How can we figure out? Because what I find happens a lot is like, well, I let them come in whenever they want. And now, they're just abusing this like open policy of coming in whenever you want. In that conversation that I just said to you, like, I focused on performance as well. Like, what will help you reach those targets, goals, insert whatever your company does here. And that is staying in connection. The moment we start telling other people what to do, we start sort of creating a little bit of a, I know better than you.
Okay.
And we do this unintentionally, Erica, and it pulls us out of connection. It pulls us out of being seen and heard. And now it's like, okay, well, I have to listen to you because you're my boss. And oh, I'm so grateful. Thank you for the 30 minutes. It then can sort of like change the power dynamics, again, unintentionally.
Wow. I am thinking through like life experiences, and I'm like, wow, this could have changed everything. I love what you said there, because you did focus on the production first, right? Like you gently and kindly said, obviously the production comes first, making sure it gets done. But let's work together on how to solve it. You weren't telling them I was saying, here, why don't you take 30 minutes, later? So I was just telling the person. That was what initially came up in my head. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you say this beautiful sentence, and it's like, I feel like I'm being heard.
Exactly. Right. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay. Now imagine a leader that is doing that continually. Your nervous system is going to feel, again, I don't want to generalize, but what that tells your nervous system is there's consistency here. And I can come in and have this conversation with my manager because I know that they're seeing me and hearing me. And even if we have a tough topic to discuss, the consistency here is such that I think I can do this and not feel safe enough to do it.
Can I ask you a silly question? Maybe it's not a silly question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the need for consistency starts when you are a child and you have this routine every night, for example.
Our brain likes consistency. Our brain's wired to look for threats and to save energy. So consistency is great because it falls into a pattern. It's predictable.
Okay.
And so absolutely, we love consistency. Our brain loves consistency. Our brain doesn't like unpredictability because there aren't patterns, and it's going to take more energy to try and track and be aware of all these things. And our brain's an amazing, like our whole nervous system, it's just trying to protect us.
Wow. I mean, that makes sense. Like everything you're saying makes sense, and it absolutely should be implemented in every single business across the world. Because if you can make happy employees, they make a happy business, which then is able to support their employees better. And it's just like this circular motion of just taking care of each other and kindness.
That's it.
Support. And it's just this way of respecting everybody in their own bodies, right?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it, Erica. And we could certainly talk about many topics related to this, but I will say this, what you just said is respecting us in our own bodies. Not all bodies have been regarded as equal in the hundreds of years of our society here in North America. And so there's a lot of trauma walking around. That was one of the things that I learned when I started researching for this book, and it was a big, big eye-opener for me. So not to get clinical definitions of trauma, but it was a very simplified way of understanding that this resource talked about 3 types of trauma. There's collective trauma, which is something we all experience. And so COVID-19 and what happened there was a collective trauma. If there is an earthquake, the recent earthquake in Morocco, or if there is a tsunami, years ago in Japan, those are collective experiences of trauma. And it's a bit more event focused. Okay. Then there is situational trauma. So that's going to be personal to all of us.
Yes.
And again, it's situational. And then the third type is racialized trauma. Now, as a white woman, I have not and will not experience that. However, I can tell you from looking at those three types of trauma, it hit me like a ton of bricks, realizing, I mean, I knew I would never understand it, but it just put it into context that opened up the fact that every single one of us has a little bit. The more power and privilege we have, I don't want to say less or more, because you know what? It's not for me to say, but there's going to be some trauma that some of us are just never going to have to bear and carry.
Okay.
And so that really kind of made it like opened up the book and say, hey, like this is everybody. This is like these three topics will capture everybody. And when I wrote the book, it was, you know, after COVID-19, and I was like, nobody can really say that they didn't have an emotional wound after COVID-19. Now, how deep and how impacted we were by the pandemic, that's obviously going to change or be different. And so people are really looking for new ways to make sense of what the hell's going on in this world. And so to me, this helps leaders who are interested. Because here's another thing with trauma-informed leadership. I never force it down anybody's, like, you know, force it on them.
Yeah.
I never say, you have to do this. The way I wrote the book, it was, this is an invitation. If you're curious, if you want to like, just explore some different ideas. And if people aren't ready for it, then, hey, that's fine. I'm not going anywhere. The topic, the conversation's not going anywhere. And, you know, maybe you'll circle back someday. But that's a big part of this work, is giving people choice, right? When people have choice, they have more control and agency over their safety. And so that's a big part of this work for me as well.
Wow. So talking about, you know, the COVID and the way that life changed, right? People are now working virtually.
Yep.
So how does that impact what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, just like anything else, there's going to be, you know, like having meetings or one-on-ones. We just have to understand that we're missing some information, right? So when we're together in a room, there is information, our nervous systems are talking to each other. And for some people, virtual feels safer.
Okay.
For a variety of reasons. You know, there could be some gender, there could be some racial situations where there's microaggressions. And if we have a virtual environment, if those microaggressions are physical in nature, like perhaps touching somebody's hair, well, that can't happen virtually. Certainly microaggressions can happen through conversing virtually. So it's, again, understanding that you need to take time and care to set up the container, the learning container, the learning space, the meeting space, and taking the time and care to do that versus jumping right in. All right, you need to do this, you need to do, and, you know, starting to like, you know, be demanding like that. So during COVID, I did a whole lot of workshops online. And one thing that became so clear to me was never rush over the opening part of your meeting or your facilitation. Take time to check in, ask, and you can have questions. You can get people to answer a check-in question. You can go around the circle, you know, depending on the group and the tone and the culture of the organization. I might modify that a little bit, but even when I'm working with executives, I'll be like, okay, what is one thing you want to give yourself permission to do today in this meeting?
That is okay.
That's one thing. You know, for some of the longer engagements, we set up a learning container, and where I will overtly say, what does safety look like for you? What do you need from your peers? What do you need from me? I used to take those things for granted, Erica. I thought, come on, go back to the overachiever, the recovering overachiever. It's like, we got things to do. Like, we don't need time.
Yeah.
So, and just setting expectations, or like guidelines, you know, a guideline, like, let's all have our video on. And if you're not able to, we understand. And it's going to impact how we connect. but we understand and trust that it's off for a reason, right? Cognitive load might be too much. There might be a situation. I had one client who's, during the pandemic, one of their parents was home. They'd pulled them out of the care home they were in, and they had dementia, their mother. And so sometimes she would wander through the house without any clothes on. So, recognizing and that people's situations might be different, but inviting people, please turn it on, and here's why. Setting guidelines, like one thing I always say is, hey, if you have to leave our boxes on the screen here, totally understand. I would ask though that you send me a note, or you send a producer a note telling us how long you're going to be gone for, because we're going to put you in breakout groups. So just sort of getting really clear on what's okay and what's not okay.
Okay.
So yeah, those are some ways that you can help create the space for innovation, for creativity, for openness.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Okay. So is there a story or an example that just you love that has positively impacted an organization or an individual, something that you've done that really made a difference that you've held on to?
Well, I mean, it's all the work that I do right now. I've had several people recently just say, wow. And this is with entrepreneurs. This is with people in corporate, like all sorts of different types of settings.
Yeah.
Say, I have such a different level of awareness now that I am able to choose different behaviors. Sometimes, not all the time, but now I understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And in fact, I'm so much more compassionate for the people that I work with, because I realize if I'm going through this, then they're going through this too. So it really has humanized us and helped people to realize, like, I'm not alone. And so I've had lots of feedback since digging into this work and since coming out with the book. And you can't hear anything better than that, because when you're in that state, you can perform really well. You can have those courageous conversations. You can confront certain elements of yourself that aren't great.
Yes.
And you can just sleep easier at night too, right? Because you're not trying to be something or someone that you're not.
You're not spending that energy on trying to be someone you're not. You're just,
right.
You're spending the energy on what's true and what feels good.
You know what? Sorry, this reminds me of another thing, Erica. I had a group I was working with, and we were working on some really big topics for the organization.
Okay.
And after, at the end of the day, this was a really big reflection. They all looked at each other and was like, this wasn't as heavy as we thought it was going to be. And what was so beautiful about that is that these hard conversations, these hard things we have to move, when we come at it from a trauma-informed lens, meaning we're clear on our reactivity patterns, we focus on connection, to quote Glennon Doyle, we can do hard things, and we don't have to carry 15,000 tons home, honestly. We don't have to go home at the end of the day feeling like we've been hit by a truck.
No, yes.
So that was another really incredible piece of feedback, because imagine all the things that we could do and solve and be in connection with each other. And it doesn't have to feel so heavy all the time.
It just feels like kindness.
Yeah.
It's just, it all boils down to kindness and, taking care of your fellow humans. So this is amazing. So I asked this question to everyone.
Yep.
Who do you think is the most innovative entrepreneur, either in history or now, who has impacted you?
So I didn't know I could go back in history, but the person I'm going to choose is Vicki Saunders, and she's in Canada, and she started up this global group. They're now called Corrales.
Right.
It used to be called CEO. And yeah, and it's a movement that she started back in, I think, 2015, really driven to help female entrepreneurs get funding, because traditional funding models did not serve really anybody, any women or people identifying as women. And she has built this incredible community that evolves and transforms every year. They're so forward thinking. They're so grounded in social impact and really deepening connection with ourselves and with each other. And so to me, the innovation there and the humility and the impact is incredible.
I am totally following her right now on socials. And I mean, that is beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know her, her name doesn't, come up like everybody else gives me, a lot of my profile.
And the other thing for me too is, she's really advancing and spotlighting a lot of non-traditional sort of faces. And so I think her courage, her bravery to push through and not turn away when others said, oh, you can't do this. This is silly. And yeah, it's a pretty amazing community.
I think I heard in another podcast, and I just loved what was said is rejection is God's protection.
Yeah.
And what you believe in, you can, talk to 1,000 people and they can reject you, but there's a reason. There's a reason for it. So keep going until you find what that reason is.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for telling me about her. I totally, going to follow her and learn from her from what I can. So I enjoy finding new people who have the courage to have their own voice and share it with others, and in a positive way, right?
Yep.
You can share your voice no matter what you're doing, and you can do it in a kind and positive and loving way.
Yeah.
So that's just awesome. Well, I have had the best time talking with you. You blow my mind. Like I said that before, but you really blow my mind. Now I have to get your book and really understand, because I'm listening to you going,
well, and I love your curiosity, Erica, and the back it up and just that. Those are the type of people that I hope will just get curious in this. Like I said, I'm not trying to tell everyone this is what it needs to be, even though I think it is. But just respecting everybody's journey to get there. So,
yep, there's that.
Thank you for your curiosity.
Thank you. Okay, so if somebody wants to get a hold of you or get your book, where can they find that?
All right. Well, my website, carolynswora.com, can link you to everything that I do. But really quickly, the book you can find on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Indigo chapters in Ontario, the province that I live in. You can get it in most major book retailers.
Okay.
But yeah, Amazon will always have it. It's also available on Audible as well. So if you want to hear me talk it, I can talk to you.
Happy as a mompreneur is what I there's lots that I have to do, and it's like you clean one room and then you go to the other room and all of a sudden your kids messed up the first room. So I sit here and I listen to audiobooks, and as I'm constantly chasing after my four humans. So I'm very happy that you have. I'm going to do a happy dance. I might even listen to it tomorrow on our 3-hour drive to Jackson.
Cool. Well, that would be great. And if you want to listen to me, I do have my podcast called Evolve, A New Era of Leadership. And I'm talking to some amazing people. And really, the focus of that is self-awareness, self-regulation, and co-regulation, which is, again, 3 terms that really fall into trauma-informed leadership and helping us understand our nervous system as a leadership tool. So that's what that podcast is all about.
I'm assuming they can go to that podcast from your website. Do you have a link to that?
Yes, you can get it on my website. You can find it on any of the platforms that you listen to podcasts as well. And then, IG, Instagram, LinkedIn. I've just started TikTok as well. So I've got a team putting out learning there. So that's where you can find me.
That's why I have Kim and my team, because you know everything.
Yes.
Well, we'll make sure that all that information is in the show notes below. So I'd love to talk with you again. And again, thank you. I am honored and grateful to have you on the show. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. And if you're ever at a Raptors game or a Utah Jazz game, you might find me there too on big basketball.
Well, we might have to do that. I'm actually going to come to Utah for a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 days. So maybe we can do lunch.
There you go. There you go.
All right. Thank you so much. Wow. What a great episode. I hope you had as much fun as I did. If you want more of this goodness, make sure you subscribe so that you get notifications for future podcasts. And if you found value from this, please share it with others. You can visit our website at cwgdigital.com. This is Erica Bailey. I am your host, and I will see you next time.